program, we have here 4 two-day workshops that were developed and that are run by David Spungen, who was a student of mine at American University. And for each of these, managed to lead self, one-on-one teams and organizations, he's developed a two-day program. He's going to tell us a little bit about each one. So David, why don't you take over?
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Peter and Joyce, for having me. I'm excited to talk to you all about these 4 workshops and how they complement and supplement the Manage the Lead Immersion Program. Before I jump into any of the details around the workshops themselves, let me give you a little history about where they came from and how I designed them. So I've been in the leader development space now for about 26 years, and my journey really started way back when I was a young cadet at West Point and decided to major in leadership development. I was one of only 10 cadets that decided to do that. Everyone said, be an engineer. And I said, no, this is what my focus wants to be. And it was a really important decision for me because there soon after I was in the military leading teams as a cavalry officer for nearly a decade. And I was able to apply much of that philosophy and theory around leadership into practical application in some pretty austere environments and figure out what results, what really produced the results that I was looking for. There soon after, transitioned to corporate America, led some teams at the global billion-dollar level company and also in startups. But really, regardless of where I was noticing some gaps in leadership between what I experienced in the military and what I was experiencing in corporate America. And this is really when I decided that this is when I figured out that this is what I wanted to do with my life, was really to help people to close those gaps. And so for about the next 10 years, I really set out to answer the question of what is the best way to teach the skills of leadership to others? And it took me on a journey and exploration of many different approaches and methodologies, one of which was working at the MSc, the American University Masters in Organization Development Program, which I met Peter, along with at Harvard University's Art and Practice of Leader Development Program and some executive coaching schools, certification courses. But the idea is that each time I went to one of these programs, I was bringing a best of breed approach back, what I thought was particularly relevant for developing leaders, and integrating them into workshops. Now, over time, I've gotten feedback with various clients, and this is what we've developed now. It's really a target. It's a program. A sequentially delivered program at 4 separate levels: leading oneself, leading at one-to-one relationships, leading at the team level, and then leading across the organizational boundaries and so forth. So each one of these is a 2-day workshop delivered over the course of a year, with each module designed to be delivered quarterly. And in between those quarters, you have individual development plans, initiatives, actions against those development plans, and then I'm delivering sustainment coaching one-on-one with your team members. Now, this is also quite flexible as well. If a single module looks particularly interesting to you, it can be done as a single module, as well as if 2 days is impractical and you just need to really have a single day of delivery, it can be modified to do so. And this is live training. This is in your place of work, on site or off sites in the Denver or San Francisco area. So with that, what do you say we jump into some of the details and go to the Leading Self? So the Leading Self course is really all about opening your aperture and really helping you to see yourself more fully, growing your self-awareness, and then growing your self-management capabilities. The tool or the instrument we primarily use to do so is something called the EQI 2.0, which is an emotional intelligence assessment tool. And what I really like about the EQI 2.0 is that it's globally benchmarked against other executives, like-minded executives that want to see where they are in their current method of development, where they are in their careers. You can benchmark by gender, by globally, where they are located, etc. And ultimately, what you're figuring out is where you are emotionally intelligent, and where there might be some gaps that you need to work on. We also use the work of Marshall Goldsmith in his book Triggers to help to identify ways to behavioral cues to close those gaps. And some of the content of the course is based on things like emotional regulation. We're looking at building resiliency, time, stress, and energy management, helping you to establish greater credibility, personal accountability, self-discipline measures, those sorts of topics. Ultimately, when you leave the course, you have a better understanding of who you are, and maybe you have some actions and some choice around some behaviors that might be more beneficial for you in managing your team. Let's jump to the next one. So at the one-to-one level, this is all about critical one-on-one communications. And the tool that we use to kind of build some awareness again is something called the DISC assessment, which measures your innate personality tendencies. And what's really great about this is there's 4 ways that the model is broken down between dominance, influence, steadiness, and conscientiousness. You get a better understanding of what your tendencies are, but more importantly, you get a better understanding of the other 3 as well. And so you can adjust your style to be more effective in these conversations. And then the specific conversations that we are doing a lot of experiential work around is 1, helping you to deliver constructive feedback in a way that inspires rather than provokes defensiveness in people, which I think is just an imperative management skill set that needs to be mastered. We're also doing a little work around conflict. So when you're in outright conflict with team members, how you can adjust your effectiveness and your approach. And then most importantly, I think a skill set that is just missing in the workforce today with most managers is the ability to facilitative coach. What I mean by facilitative coach is not be directive and not lean into their expertise so fully, but to actually step back and ask questions that unlock the potential, the problem solving, and the idea, so you get that buy-in that you're looking for from your reports and from other team members. And so we use the coaching habit as a framework, as a text to help support that material. And ultimately you leave that program with much more confidence in your ability to be effective in these conversations. So the next level, we can jump to that. This one is all about creating high-performing teams. And so we're pulling in 3 methods or schools of thought for this particular workshop, and we're looking at Patrick Lecione's 5 behaviors of a cohesive team. That's the tool that we use, in which we're helping your team to evaluate their level of trust with one another, vulnerability-based trust more specifically. We're helping them to engage in healthy conflict so that they can build greater commitment and buy-in to the plan that you have that you want to execute together. And then finally, how to have more accountability-based conversations and focus on results. But I'm also integrating that with, I think it's a really powerful text by Dan Quayle, New York Times bestseller, called The Culture Code, where we're looking at some of the highest performing teams the world's ever seen and what their cultures were about and how they did things a little differently. And so we're looking at team and culture, the integration, the intersection of that. And finally, the last piece, I'm pulling in, I worked extensively with Google for the last 3.5 years now. And I really have come to appreciate the large amount of internal research that they've done on high performing teams in their rework projects. So we're really bringing in their concepts of psychological safety and integrating those 3 schools of thought to help you to really, when you leave this workshop, it's about helping you and your team to be more focused on what you're trying to create together, but more importantly, feel more comfortable with each other. And then the last Manage to Lead workshop here is about leaning across organizational boundaries, and particularly the most difficult task is sometimes when you have to lead without authority. And so this specific workshop is about 2 skills that we're trying to train. The first of which is something called use of self. This was foreign to me many years ago, and in many ways I'm still working on this because it is such a complex skill. And really what we're talking about here is your body as an instrument to help you to detect data that's going on within your team or within the organization. You're making sense of your emotions and your gut intuitions, and that's helping you to interpret group dynamics that are going on in the system. And then the next step in that is, what do you do with that information? And so we're helping you to have more mindful intervention strategies. So in particular, we're helping you to make observations, ask the right kinds of questions, maybe even make provocative interpretations on behalf of the group. The idea is that you want to get past mediocrity. You want to get past political factions that might exist within your team, so that you can make progress and learn and grow and move towards those organizational strategies that you're trying to get accomplished. Happy to answer.
Let me just throw in that one way to get all this is to go and get a 2-year executive master's in organization development at AU or many other great schools. But you learn a lot more theory than you really want to maybe have a time or need for. And so what David has done here is taken the essence of a lot of the major componentry of those programs and made it accessible to executives and leaders.